Alright, in today's video we're going to show how to use Power Automate to move uploaded files or files uploaded to group forms in SharePoint. So you probably already know that files uploaded to group forms go into the SharePoint site for the group that owns that form, but they're put into a specific structure. So basically each form has a folder, and within that there is a folder for each file upload question. So essentially one form submission, if there are 3 different file upload questions, those files are going to be in 3 separate subfolders. Finding them all and working with them could be cumbersome, and you probably want to organize them into another structure, say a folder for that submission with all of those files in it. So basically we could create files, and that's what I've done in the past in these scenarios where essentially rather than trying to worry about moving it, I just create a new file because we can get the file info, we can get the file content, and then create a new file in SharePoint. The problem is that that's kind of inefficient. It basically duplicates your storage because you've got the original file where it was uploaded and then another copy of it in another location, which depending on your storage limitations might not be an issue for you, but for a lot of organizations storage is expensive, and even in Microsoft 365 world storage can be pricey. So we want to do this efficiently and move those files rather than creating duplicates. Now the problem that we run into is that in order to use the move file action in Power Automate, we need the file path, or the file to move has to be presented in this format with the library name and then all of the folders in the path to that file. So in this case, it's under Shared Documents, Apps, Microsoft Forms, then the name, a folder for the form, a folder for the question, and then there's the file. Now the issue is that when we get the response data, the file response data from the forms connector, this is what we get. Kind of the closest thing we have is the link, and that is not obviously the same as the path that we need. In other words, this is not going to work to move that file, and there's only one way to get that. Basically what we need to do is get the path to this file, and because the way essentially Forms is using the OneDrive terminology or the OneDrive version of identifiers for these files, so it uses this ID, which is a GUID for the file, and then a drive ID, which essentially is an identifier for that particular document library. So basically we can use those together as an identifier to get the file metadata, and then that will give us the path that we need to move the file. Well, not directly. It's going to take a little bit of massaging. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to get the file path using the OneDrive connector. We're going to split that path into an array using an expression called split. Then we're going to use another expression called skip, because that path is going to include some pieces we don't need, and we'll use skip to basically remove those, then join it back together in the appropriate format for the file move action in SharePoint. So let me jump over to our flow here, and I've already built this out, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through how I did it, and I'll also show you how to clean things up, because right now it says a bunch of separate actions. So I'm just going to edit my flow here, and you'll see that I am, whenever, basically normal forms based flow. When it's submitted, get the details, and then I'm creating a folder. In this case, I'm calling the folder response _ response ID, and then a timestamp of the current date and time when it is being, when the folder is created. Just as a general rule, this is a good idea for these kinds of flows, just because it gives you, yes, there will be a created timestamp, but because folder names also need to be unique in SharePoint, you'll probably want to have some kind of unique identifier in that folder name. Again, that's another topic for another time. But then I'm doing the normal parsing JSON of the file upload questions. So we have question 1, question 2, question 3, which are all file uploads. I'm using a compose to the union expression in a compose to merge all of those outputs into a single variable or single array rather, that I'm then processing through using a for each. Within that, and this I've shown in another video, so it's a good way if you've got multiple questions to merge together that data and work with all of those files in the same way, or do the same thing with all of them. Now basically this for each loop is going to process through that array of those 3 files, and for each one it's going to get the file metadata. And for that, essentially what we're going to use is, as I mentioned, that drive ID. I'll just rebuild this to show you how it's put together, but we need to get the drive ID, so I'll click the dynamic content, and actually I'm going to use an expression for this. So we're going to, like that. Because we can't really use the dynamic content to select it, we need to actually spell it out. But we're processing through this array, which is made up of all of those. So we can, to get the drive ID of each item, we can just type in item, open close parenthesis, question mark, square bracket, drive ID, add that. Then we need to put a dot or a period there, and then we need the ID, which again we'll use another expression to get the ID, which will be item ID, add, and that's that. So if I save this, now those may resolve into the kind of basic, recognizing that I'm getting the output of that compose and those specific values from it. Then what I need to do is split the path. So basically what's going to be returned from that is going to include some things we don't need. So we'll split that based on the slash character, so that I'll just retype this so you can see how it's built. We're going to split, and then the dynamic content we want to split is from the get file metadata. We need the path, and then we need a comma, because split is basically saying give me a string and then tell me what to use to separate that. And we'll separate it on the /. All right, so that is all we need for that. Now we need to compose, use another compose here, where we're going to use the skip expression, because what this is going to produce is going to include some pieces we don't need. So we're going to use skip, and in testing, I've calculated out that we need to skip 4 items, or the first 4 elements of the array that's produced. So the format for this again is just simply skip, and then the collection or the array, and the collection that we're splitting or skipping content in is the output of that split. And I want to skip the first 4. Now in this case, because 4 is an integer, we don't put the single quotes around it, so just know that that is how it works. If it's an integer value, no single quotes. If it's a string value, you need single quotes. So I'll click update. Then we're going to use a compose here to join that back together, basically join the output of that skip. So take the remaining elements, join them to reassemble the string or the path that we need with the single quotes. Again, that's just join and the output of skip first 4, And again, we're joining with a forward slash, and in this case, because it is a string value, we do need the single quotes around it. Then in our move file action, now we do need to basically the pieces that we need to reassemble also include the shared document. So basically the path that this expression is going to give us is the apps folder name for the file or for the form, folder name for the question, but it doesn't include shared documents. So we do need to preface it with that and the forward slash. So basically we just hard coding that in, but that's okay because that's going to be consistent. Now, truth be told, you could skip all of these expressions if you want to hard code. If basically you could hard code it. If it was just one question, it might be simpler to just hard code that path. But in this scenario, because we have multiple different questions, we can't do that. And really just to make it more flexible, more reusable, I don't want to do that. So we want to make as much of this as dynamic as possible, but we know that that slash shared documents is never going to change, so it's okay for that part to be hard coded. So I'll just hit save here, and in the meantime I'm going to go into that form and we will submit the form again and just see that flow run. Go to forms. And my multiple file upload question group form, here we go. And I'll just preview this and I will attach some files. So I'll upload this image and that one, and I'll just do 3 images here. Doesn't matter, it could be any type of file, but I'm just grabbing images because those are what I have. And then when I submit this, that flow will run, so I can go back and we can just review. You can see that it is running. Will take a minute or so to run. Shouldn't be very long. And here we can see that we've got the parse JSON. Within the loop here, we can see that it's trying to get the file metadata. It is just taking its time. And it's finished. Now, just so we can see sort of why we needed to do that, all of that text manipulation or parsing and whatnot, let's just take a look at the outputs of this get file metadata. And we can see that the path it retrieves or path that it returns is all of this, which is to say, like, we need this is the folder for the form, this is the folder for the question, there's the file name, but what I need is, or what I don't need really, is this first chunk where it says, basically it's the drive ID and a colon and root. So basically this first 4 elements are what I'm removing to eventually replace with the proper path that I need in the move file action. But then we can see that we are, if we look at the output of these, you can see that it's splitting that out into those elements. So we can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 elements that are skip. We're using skip to remove. And then the remaining elements, so apps, forms, etc., are what we are reassembling using the join expression, and then prefacing with / shared documents to get the path that we need to move the file. So if we scroll down farther here to our move file action, we can see that was successful and it was able to move it. And if we go into the SharePoint site for this or Forms Sandbox SharePoint site, and I go to Form Response Files, we'll see a folder there created 3 minutes ago with response 6, and there are the 3 files that I uploaded. And if I go back to their original location, so that would be apps, forms, we can see that the original files are not there. So they were physically moved from here to there, which is what we wanted. So hopefully this helps you. Again, it's not super difficult to do. You just want to pay attention. Actually, I did say I was going to show, if you don't mind having those separate compose actions, you can leave this as is. But if you want to kind of neaten things up a little bit, you can collapse those, basically collapse these composes into one compose that will be kind of contain one really ugly expression, but I'm going to show you anyway, just so that you can say, I'll just say, use another compose here, and call this compose one ugly expression. And again, if you don't need to do this, it's optional, but in my experience, it's kind of nice to have one question rather than having to parse through or go through multiples. But we want to start from the inside out. So basically we're going to first start with the split. So this is what we're splitting. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to copy this expression, and I'm going to open up my handy dandy Notepad++ here so that we can sort of assemble this and then paste it all in. So that's our first expression. That's going to be sort of the center of it. And then we're going to get our next expression, which is the skip. And we'll plug that in there. And then our last, which is the join. There. So basically what we need to do here is we are going to replace this, because it's the out, basically this is giving us that. So we're going to copy this and put it in place of that. And then this is the compose, or the split on forward. So we need to take all of this and replace that. So then this big ugly expression is what we will paste into our one ugly expression. Oh, actually we need to go to the expression editor, paste it in there, click add, and then in our move file down here we'll just remove that and we will paste in our one ugly expression. And I'm just going to resubmit a previous run of this flow rather than fill out the form again. Actually, I won't be able to do that because I moved those files, so it won't find the files to move them. Let me submit another response. All right, I'll just grab a few different files here. That is one thing to be aware of, is that if you're actually moving the file, if you try to resubmit this flow to test it or whatever, it's not going to work because you've moved it. It's going to look for a file that you moved, and therefore it can't find, and the flow will fail. But if we go back and view this, it failed for some reason. And I'm not sure why, because the file is there. Oh, I forgot something, so let me edit this. When I replaced the yeah, that's it. I forgot to put the slash back in between there. All right, let's save this. sorry about that. Proof that even, well, everyone makes mistakes. So let me just try this again. We'll upload some other files. And you don't have to, you could keep uploading the same files, but I'm just uploading different ones for the sake of not repeating myself. And we'll submit that. And we'll go back and that will run and will work because now I've fixed those, I've re-added that slash. It will just take a moment to do those moves and then we should be good to go. And indeed it succeeded. And if I go back over to our form sandbox and our form response files, there is our latest one with those files. So there you go. That's basically how we do it. If you have any questions, throw those in the comments down below and have a great day.